I am not proud of who I am today. I need to be better tomorrow. I need to change, and that starts now. One more lap. You can do it. I can learn anything if I set my mind to it. I'll keep reading and studying until I reach my goals. This moment right now makes it all worth it. I'm proud of myself for not giving up on my dreams. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. I'll keep going, one step at a time. I'll never give up on myself. To continue where I left off, the shot that I heard was very abrupt, very fast. Everything happened so quickly, but I do recall, well, from what I remember and what I heard, I mean, I was like, what, 8 years old at the time? And the main thing that came out of that situation was that I didn't lose my brother slash father that day. Luckily, the officer shot him on his foot. Not luckily, but it is better than losing him that way. You know, I think I would have been a little more not right. Fucking cars, man. It's supposed to be a quiet neighborhood. Yeah, from what I remember, they still took him in handcuffs. Paramedics, everything came in. It was just a little devastating to see that, you know, especially as a child. You don't register some certain stuff. I couldn't comprehend, and it happened so fast. It's something that you definitely wouldn't be like, hey, you know, this is it. This is what's gonna go down. But he ended up getting, I believe, four years extra. So I was 8 at that time, and I didn't get to see him until I was about 12. But obviously, I got to see him in prison lots of times, because my grandmother would not, you know, despite everything that my grandmother has been through with these guys, she still stuck through them through thick and thin. Those were her babies. Those were her creations. So my grandfather wasn't so keen about my, you know, brother slash father, because he did not like his life choices. For those people that do not know, I am Puerto Rican and Guyanese. My grandmother and my grandfather were very, very strict on me, but at the same time, they gave me everything I wanted because they didn't want me to end up like them, you know? And I understood that now. I completely understand that now. You know, they wanted to protect me. They wanted to ensure that I wouldn't turn out like them. So going on forward, we did actually feel the energy being more tensed, because once they wanted my brother slash uncle to be more, they didn't want my brother slash uncle to be inside of the house too much, especially my uncle slash brother. He was the one that was more, like I said, into the gangs, and it was more completely well known because of all the you know, crazy stuff that they used to do. It mind boggles me though. But my brother slash uncle had 3 other kids, very beautiful kids. That's the thing. We as a family, like, my grandmother kept me so involved in her affairs, and I wasn't able to express myself to a point where I wanted to be, you know, going out or have friends like that. They were pretty strict when it came to that. And like I said, they didn't want me to end up like my brother slash uncle and my brother slash father. So my sister is an amazing, beautiful woman. She never drank in her life, never did any drugs in her life. And during the time all of this was happening, my sister kept strong. You know, she was always a strong female in the family. And she was young too, you know, like she had to take care of me when my grandparents couldn't. So she was obviously older than me because I was the last kid in there. But I couldn't see why it was a bit devastating for her to be involved in a lot of stuff, because she would always see her brothers go in and out of jail as well. And she started working at the age of like 14, you know, started working at these little department stores to make her own little money, graduated high school. She went to college for a few, and then because of everything that was going on in the family, she just couldn't bear with it anymore. And so she left. She found someone she fell in love with, and she left the house at the age of 17. I was still, 10 years old when she left, and I will never forget the day she left the house. It was hard. It was very hard. So my grandparents, let me tell you a little bit about my grandparents. They were well known in the community as well. They were very well known in the projects. I grew up in Taft Projects in Harlem, and the projects are not a place to be fucked with, you know what I'm saying? And when you grow up in that type of environment, you always think to yourself, what can go wrong? You know, am I gonna live the next day? But not me, not my brothers. They were always confident enough to be like, I'm gonna live to see another day no matter what. But my grandparents never lived in fear of the outside world. They used to sell earrings, they used to sell jewelry, you know, used to sell jewelry to people that pass by and stuff like that, make their money, hustle however they can. My grandfather was a big gambler, but he gambled on horses because he was a jockey at one point. You know, that's all he knew. He loved the horse race. He loved the horse track. He loved the adrenaline of making money, thousands of dollars each freaking day. And then with that money, you know, go ahead and buy some stuff to sell. And that's what they did. They made their money selling stuff, and the hustle mentality for them at that time was amazing to me. I grew up looking at them like selling and telling people to come here and check it out, you know what I'm saying? Like they were doing this shit. They were not only in Harlem doing it, they were also in Coney Island doing it. You know what I'm saying? They would go to Coney Island on the boardwalk, sell jewelry, sell whatever they needed to sell to like make a living. And you know, all they wanted for my brothers to do was to make a decent living how they used to do it. But drugs, honestly, 80s and 90s were where it's at, and people were always fearful of them, and that's something that my grandparents didn't want. You know, they said to themselves, if I'm gonna raise you, I'm gonna raise you right. I'm not gonna raise you like how I raised them, you know. And since I was the last to be born anyway, they wanted the best life for me. They wanted to make sure that I finished school. They wanted to make sure I finished everything. Like my sister was there, you know, she finished school. She did everything she needed to do, but we'll get to the story once I reach my teens of what happened. But as far as my brother/father, yeah, I didn't get to see him much until I was 12. But when it came to my brother/uncle, well, he got into a lot of other stuff while he was out. One of the major things that we had to deal with him was women and guns. You know, the major thing about it I can respect about my uncle/brother was that he never brought a woman around my grandmother unless it was official. You know what I'm saying? Like all the other hoes that he had would like fuck him and leave him. But the day I picked up my first gun was with him, and my grandmother was so freaking scared because he just had a whole bunch of guns just sitting on the freaking bed and said, hey, come here, bro, just pick one. And he wanted to he wanted to teach me how to shoot guns and stuff like that, but my grandmother was not having it. She was not having it. She just said, we are about to fucking leave. My grandmother didn't speak too much English like that. She understood it, but she couldn't write it or anything like that. It was something. The way I had to learn. But yeah, it's something that I can agree that I actually had to experience. I'll never forget though, Like I said, I haven't mentioned my mother yet. I think my mother would be a more difficult subject to talk about. I don't know anything about her. I've only pictured her face once, and that's it. There was so much secrets that were being kept from me that I look back at it and I'm just like, why did you keep this from me? You know? But back to the guns part. Now, I didn't know anything about guns until my uncles showed me about them. My uncle slash brother, they got into a big heated argument. My grandfather wasn't there at the time. He was out horse betting, and it would always be me and my grandmother alone, always, a lot of the times. My sister would be working her ass off doing what she got to do. She didn't want anything to do with the household. You know, she didn't want to be bothered with it. I mean, I understood. I understood why. But at night, it was, all I kept hearing was yells and yells and screams. And I was raised around a lot of yelling, a lot of banging, you know, like raised with so much of that, like I said before, video games were the only thing that distracted me from the abuse that was around me. And you used little shopping carts that had like had little bars on it and everything like that, and you just prance it around to the nearest food store, and you just go shopping with it. So my grandmother always carried it no matter where she went, because she was always shopping. And I remember it clearly because it was one of the worst experiences that I went through when I was like 8 years old. And my brother slash uncle got into a big argument with my grandmother, and all I see is my grandmother on the floor with a shopping cart on top of her. I look up at him. He looks dead in my face and says,